So, to really understand my story, it actually begins long before I was born. In 1982, my dad, who I'll refer to as Jim, was extremely socially active. The place where he lived was a beehive of activity, and people were always doing various things like martial arts, gaming, hiking, just playing, hanging out. There were always people there, and so it was just a whole bunch of things. And usually the people who were there were young adults, like my dad's age. He was about 20, 21. People would be 22, 19, 18. And then you would have some teenagers, 16, 17 years old. And a very tiny part of my dad's life at that point was the fact that, he would go on hikes with the younger brother of one of the teenagers who would hang out with that social group. And so, my dad, being the kind of person he is, when people ask for things like to go on hikes with him or something, he will say yes. And so, he said yes, and they exchanged information and with the parents. And he always made sure that when taking the kid on a walk, he was checking the kid out from his parents, and when bringing the kid back, made sure that, he was handing the kid back to one of his parents, because, he was responsible for the kid's safety, and that was the way he made sure everything was okay. And it's not just my dad who is saying this. There are court records along to this fact from investigations and things like that. So usually on the hikes that they went on, the kid, actually all of the time, he would come back in good spirits. He would always be happy, wanting to go on another hike. Even if he was tired, he would still be a happy kid. And he kept going on the hikes because he wanted to. No one was forcing him to or anything. And there were witnesses to this fact that, whenever the kid was returned, he was happy. He enjoyed himself. And there were only very few walks or hikes that they went on alone. The majority of the time they were in a group. But yeah, and he would still come back happy and enjoying himself. And so in 1983, my father was really surprised to find a detective and a police officer knocking on his door and arresting him for molesting the kid the year earlier. They also had a warrant to search his premises, and they were expecting to find child pornography, pictures of him molesting the child, and trophies, things like that. It was written that they were expecting to find that, but they never came up with anything. As the investigation started, my dad, he tried to find out, what exactly was the accusation, what exactly happened. And so he got this one report of what happened. And so the kid was riding in the car with his mom, and radio broadcast came on that was describing how another child had been molested. And so the kid told his mom, I think maybe I have been sexually molested, and the mom freaked out, ran home with the kid, and called the cops right away. And the police officer took the first report, and that report stated that, older man, bushy beard, by the same name as his father, had sexually molested him. That is what the kid stated. It is recorded in the first report, and it matched the exact description of his father with the same name and everything. But the next day, when the detective came by to take his own report, the kid said, no, I was mistaken. It was a tall, slim guy, clean-shaven, by the name of Jim. And so, he had completely changed from one day to the next. Instead of accusing his father, then accusing my own father, Jim. And so then the full investigation started, and after he stated that, then they got the warrant, went to my father's house, arrested him, and search the place. So both the accusation and the investigation started in 1983, and the detective who was involved, he was working very, very hard to try and prove that my dad had, multiple victims, and that, he was just trying to prove that he was a real sexual predator. But by the end, he couldn't find anything, and anywhere that he tried to say, that there was another victim, he couldn't find any evidence to prove that. Even the kids themselves were saying, no, that never happened. And on top of that, he couldn't find any solid evidence to say that my father had molested this other child, which again he hadn't, and all that was left was my dad's word against the child's word. Now, not only that, but during the investigation, when they were trying to ask the child where exactly it happened, where did he think that the molestation happened, he ended up changing his story 3 different times. 3. He changed his story because he pretty much kept changing it until he mentioned a hike where they were alone. But all the previous ones, when he was trying to say, oh, I was molested here, oh, I was molested there, oh, I was molested there, they were not alone. There were many witnesses to account to the fact that no, nothing like that had ever happened. And so this left everything to my dad's word against the kid's word. And the DA ended up deciding to drop the case because it was too weak to continue with convicting my dad because they had no evidence. So this is going to be part 1 of a 2-part video, and in the next one I am going to describe what happened in 1984 and wrap things up. Before I finish things with this video, I wanted to mention how, as much as I do get a lot of this information from my father, which means that it is somewhat biased information, there is a lot of paperwork that I have and records that came from the court that do show the facts. A lot of the things are recorded and shown through them. I have a huge box, I came and showed on camera how large the box is, full of things like this, that just have court records and official reports and things like that. So I am getting a lot of facts from that do as well point to the fact that, it is extremely possible that the kid was lying, which I believe that he was, and my dad says that he was. But anyway, so I hope you tune in for part 2.